and we're going to pull up the correct screen. Awesome. Awesome. So, getting into what makes up a credit score. What makes up a credit score? So this is the pie chart, and just going, over this real quickly. So 30% of your credit score, and this is, information that is needed for young entrepreneurs to know, due to the fact that credit is one of the most vital things. You can actually mess up your credit not knowing this kind of information ahead of time. And not having good credit is going to prevent you from, one, getting a mortgage, two, getting a car loan, three, acquiring a rental property. You can't even rent without getting a credit check in some places. So with that being said, credit score is one of the most vital things that us as entrepreneurs need to pay attention to. And this is going to teach you a little bit more of what makes up a credit score. So like I said, 30% is the amount owed. So the amount or utilization that you have makes up 30% of your credit score. So 30% of your credit score. So how much you owe versus how much limit you have access to is going to be 30% of your credit score. So if you have access to, let's say, $10,000, you only want to utilize up to $3,000 of that maximum limit. Why? Because banks and lenders are looking for a utilization rate of 30% or less in debt. So they're looking for 30% or less in debt. High debt means your funds will be allocated to other debts, which means you're less likely to get approved for a new line of credit. So 30% of your credit score is the amount you owe. If you owe none, then you have a good score within that 30%. And that's going to make up 30% of your overall score. So, as you can see, that's a big chunk of this pie, meaning, you want to keep your utilization rates under 30%. Honestly, keeping your utilization rates low is going to ensure that you get approved for new lines of credit. Now, there is maybe a process where you might utilize the funds to be able to invest in assets, but even with that being said, you want to maintain under 30%. So moving on, new credit accumulation. So 10% of your credit score is determined by new credit accumulation, meaning the number of inquiries, which are the number of times you apply for new credit. So that's going to make up 10% of your score. Now, new applications are the number of times you apply for new credit in the last 12 to 18 months. And new applications won't affect you after 3 months. After 3 months of applying for, a credit line, 3 months pass and you're good to go to apply for new lines of credit. The effect of that 10% that it has on your score wears off after 3 months of letting your score recover after applying for new lines of credit. So sometimes people go and they apply for a bunch of credit all at once. You're going to get a bunch of inquiries that are going to be within the 12 to 18 month period, and that's going to make it look to banks as if you're desperate for credit. With that being said, they want to, limit how many times you've previously applied for credit, and they want to see, minimal inquiries. So with that being said, that's going to make up 10% of your credit score. Now, another 10% of your credit score is going to be made up by the type of credit that you have, right? So 10% is determined by installment loans or revolving credit lines. So those are different forms of or different types of credit. So, banks are looking at what type of credit you have. Do you have student loans? Do you have mortgage? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have personal loans? Or do you have auto loans? Those are, types of installment loans. So installment loans are their own category. Installment loans are auto loans, mortgages, personal loans, or student loans. And with those types of credit sources, they usually have lower interest rates, longer terms, and they usually can be repossessed. So if you have a mortgage and you default on your installment loan, which is your mortgage loan, if you default on that, they're able to acquire your asset, your property, in exchange for not paying your debt, your installment loan. Now, there are other forms of credit, such as revolving lines of credit. Now, these lines of credit are credit cards, power lines, or home equity loans, they're HELOCs. In other words, home equity lines of credit. So that's going to make up 10% of your credit score. Now, getting into those revolving lines of credit. Revolving lines of credit are, like I mentioned, the credit cards. You're able to spend money on the credit card, pay that back, and then your credit card remains at the same limit that it originally started at. So if you had a $2,000 credit card, you can spend $20 on the credit card, pay that $20 off. You still have access to the entire amount of $2,000. So that is a form of revolving credit. This is powerful because you can leverage this asset. So, they're looking for what types of credit do you have, or what type of debt do you have? Do you have good debt or do you have bad debt? Typically mortgage is in a category of its own. Cars are in a category of its own. And then cards with a D, as in credit cards, are, in their own category as well. So with that being said, these types of credit are going to make up 10%. As you can see, that's pretty low. So, the type of credit is not really the main determining factor. As you can see, the biggest chunks are 30% and 35%, which are amount owed and payment history. So getting to length of credit, which makes up 15% of your credit score. 15% is determined by length of credit. Now, with length of credit, the amount of time a line of credit has been established. So banks are looking for a minimum of 2 years history in most cases. So, they want a seasoned credit score. So with that being said, a seasoned credit score consists of on-time payments for a long period of time. The longer the period of time, the more creditable you are as a person that's going to be lended to. So, the length of credit. Now, when you acquire new lines of credit, it's going to take the average of the total amount of lines and history that you have. And some banks will look at the average amount of history that you have. So if you have a 2-year card and you just acquired a new line of credit card or new credit card, they'll take the average of that. So it's going to be about 6 months. It would depreciate it to about 6 months. But as those new cards gain months of history, usually the months are intervals of 3 months, 6 months, and then 9 months to a year. Usually you want to, have those lines of credit for longer periods of time. With that being said, there is a strategy behind that. Just in the fact of acquiring revolving lines of credit that will remain at its original limit if it is always paid on time, paid off. So those are the uh, type of credit cards that you want to get, ones that you're able to keep for a long time. Now, if you have like car loans or mortgage loans, eventually those loans get paid off and then they actually drop off of your credit score. So sometimes people will say, you know, well, I paid off my loan, but my score dropped, right? So with that being said, you know, you paid off your loan, but your score dropped. That is because you lost access to a type of credit, one of these in the 10%. So, you know, you paid it off, so it's no longer on your credit file, which means they no longer have access to see that you made such and such amount of on-time payments from that history of that line of credit, whatever it is. Had it been a auto loan or mortgage loan, they can see, okay, he's paid this for 3 years consecutively on time. You know, he looks like he's worthy of being lended to. Or they may say this person has only had 3 months of credit history. You know, he's still new to credit. He could still default on a loan. His job is not stable. You know, different things that they can conclude from length of credit history. So with that being said, that makes up a little bit more portion, as you can see, compared to the 10% that new credit accumulation and type of credit provides. So that's only 10%, 10%, but length of credit is going to be 15%. Now we're going to get to the biggest chunk of the pie, which is going to be your payment history, which is going to be 30%. So 35%. So as you can see, 35% of your credit score is determined by your payment history. So with that being said, you want to have 100% on-time payment history. You don't want to miss any payments. Even just one missed payment can drop your score as much as 80 plus points. So with that being said, you know, I've had moments where things had fell into collections, as you can see, is one of the things that I wanted to talk about as well. One of my debts had fell into collections. It was a medical bill. Ended up going into collections after not, you know, taking action to take care of that debt. It fell into collections. Now, I was beneficial enough to have medical, I believe it was medical insurance at the time, which kicked in and actually paid for the collections. It took a few phone calls for me to get it cleared. But my insurance company, my health insurance company, was able to take care of that debt that fell into collections for medical. So with that being said, you know, a lot of medical bills fall into collections. That's not anything new. Sometimes they don't even take account for medical bills that fell into collections. This is mainly for, you know, like phone bills, late phone bill payments that fall into collections from either Verizon or AT&T or anybody that reports to the credit bureaus. These collections weigh on your score really heavy. Like I said, you can drop, you know, close to 80 plus points just from not paying off these collections. Now, with that being said, once it's in collections, it's moved into a different state. You want to get them before they get to collections. You have 30 days after creating that transaction of debt to pay it off, before they would give you another 30 days of that plus interest to pay that off. So you want to get it before it even hits to the second wave of the 30 days. You want to hit it within the 30 days period. So if you purchase something, you want to literally pay it off within the 30 days of you purchasing it. Now, sometimes that can vary, because if your reporting due date is before the 30 days, you want to pay it before that date. So, you know, when you acquire new lines of credit, it's very important, and take this note if you're taking notes, it's very important to know when your reporting date is going to be. I know me personally, I've been able to acquire, a credit builder card, which, we'll talk more about in previous videos. But, I myself was able to acquire a secure card, and I've been utilizing that to create payments, and then I would pay them off before the 30 days to acquire good standing credit. Now, my reporting due date is on the 14th. So if I bought something on the 10th, I have 4 days before I need to pay that off, right? I need to pay that off before they report, so that they can report 100% payment history. Now, if it's still holding a balance, you always want to pay them off. You don't want to let them linger. They'll acquire interest. You'll end up paying more. That's how the banks make their money, by charging you interest on your loan, on your debt. So you want to pay them off interest free before the 30 days. So you can do that with quick flips, and many different other methods of taking credit, leveraging it, flipping it, and then paying that off before the 30 days. Now, with that being said, those are, what makes up your payment history, collections. Now, a tip that I want to tell you guys about collections is that, when a debt falls into collections, it falls into a different category. With that being said, it was purchased by a debt collection company, which is why it fell into collections. Now, that agency's job is to go after you for more than what they paid for your debt. Now, they usually pay pennies on the dollar for your debt. So let's say you owe $10,000 in debt, and it ended up going to collections. You can potentially work a settlement because they may have paid $5,000 for your $10,000 debt. You can maybe work out a settlement for maybe 7,000, or maybe 5. It all depends on what you can work out as a settlement, so that way the collection agency gets their money, and you're able to get that removed from your credit score, enabling it to bounce back into positive 700 plus. So with that being said, you want to get these things removed. Now, if collections are on your report for 7 years, they do fall off in a sense. They'll still be on your file, but they no longer have weight on your score. So after 7 years history, that debt is usually non-effective on your credit score. So with that being said, usually if it's closer to the first year mark, or it just fell into collections, you want to nip those debts in the bud before they get 3 year, 4 year plus, because that's a long time of having a low credit score, and not being able to leverage it. Now, the importance of having a high score, you're able to utilize lower interest rates on loans. The higher your credit score is, the better interest rate you're going to get. Typically people get lower interest rates for higher credit scores. And then with that being said, even with low scores, you can barely get approved for credit cards in general. So, it's very important to have high credit, so you can leverage this to acquire assets, and then those assets are able to generate you income. So with that being said, that is the portion of our credit call. And just teaching people and our students how credit is made up, so that you're able to utilize this information to boost your credit score. Knowing about credit is going to enable you to then build up your scores, so then you can leverage your scores. And there's so much that you can do with credit. This is just the basic knowledge of how to acquire a great score. I myself have been using this same information to acquire a 740 plus, on my way to 800 plus in credit. Now, with that being said, I look forward to our individuals in our team, in our company, even in Jarrell's team and his company, learning this information, applying this information, being able to acquire assets. And not only that, once we can acquire funding, we can all invest in assets collectively, after being able to acquire this funding. But you can first build your credit score, start your business, get your cash flow coming in, acquire even more business credit, and then leverage that. So with that being said, family, this is what we teach. This is the Young CEO Mastermind call, and we'll continue to host these Tuesdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. rain or shine. Family, I hope you all have a blessed night.